Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say this at the outset. Nearly half of this panel either lives in New York or was born here, probably true of half the country. And we have affection for the city and a passion about it. And so I would start out by noting that the bravery and the courage of the men and women that you led in the face of unspeakable humanity and horror has been impressed upon us in a dozen ways. And what you saw this morning, or what people here this morning saw, is just a small fraction of the information that we have gathered about the bravery and selflessness of the people whom you led. We have to ask hard questions, though, because if we don't, we cannot ensure greater safety from this day forward. So the hard questions that we're asking are no way in derogation of the reality of that heroism and that bravery. And I just want you to understand that as we ask these hard questions. In fact, our staff has found lots of miscommunication. Now, a lot of that is attributable to the sheer magnitude of these horrific acts and the targeted towers, which were so huge and concentrated. To be sure, extraordinary. But nevertheless, the staff has found fissures between stovepipes, just as we have in the federal government, but fissures between stovepipes within the New York City government that we need to explore. Whether it is about the interoperability or lack thereof of radios, or the too narrowly construed role of the 911 operators, these are real problems. Now, I want to drill down on one of them, which has to do with this notion of what is an incident commander. To a layperson, the notion that Mayor Giuliani designated who would be an incident commander in each situation suggests that he thought that where there was an emergency, one person would have the lead, even if it meant that they would have the lead over a different agency. Now, maybe that's not true, because, Mr. Sheirer, you have talked about the incident commander for the firemen and the incident commander for the police, whereas I would have thought there would have been one. So I have really two questions for the panel. One, in the procedures promulgated by Mayor Giuliani, which seem to list one entity as the incident commander for each type of event, was it your understanding that one person should be the incident commander? And the second question I have is, if you look at the procedures promulgated last Friday by Mayor Bloomberg, instead of listing one for each type of incident, there's now a list of 2 or 3, or in some cases 4 or 5 lead incident commanders for a particular incident. And so my second question is this an improvement? Who would like to start?
I'll take part of it. Mayor Giuliani worked to coordinate all of those responses, all those protocols. He would ask all of us what we thought when there was a question that came up. He would listen to my best argument, and I would bring with me the best chiefs that I had to make the argument. Then he would throw me out. Then he would have Commissioner Safer or Commissioner Kerik come in with his best chiefs, and they would make their argument. Then he would sit down with Jerry Howell or Richie Sheirer, whatever the time was, and make a decision. And whatever it was, it worked. And there
He would make it. Let me interrupt so I can understand. You're talking about he would do this in real time when there was an incident?
No, certainly not in an incident.
You're talking about a
These are
policy
when we were
judgment.
trying to work out the protocols that would be signed off in place when you had situations. We talked before, you asked Joe Morris about plane crashes. The way we understood it, a plane crash On land, the fire department was in charge of plane crash in the water. NYPD was in charge because NYPD had a much more sophisticated harbor unit, helicopters where they could drop divers into the water, a much greater scuba team, scuba operation than we had at FDNY.
Let me interrupt just for some clarity. So it was your understanding prior to 9/11 that if there was a plane crash on land, the incident commander would be the fire department. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so why is it then there was a separate police incident commander on 9/11?
Well, you have to remember how big an incident we had. The police mission on 9/11, Brian, you should talk about the police mission.
Let me, there was a separate police incident commander, and the event commander for the NYPD was Joe Esposito, was the chief of department. He was not running the event or the incident. He was doing everything else that the police had to do. We had to secure the scene. We had to create safety zones. We had to secure the rest of the frozen zone downtown. We had to deploy our troops. Well, that's what the chief of department was doing. The incident commander for the event, the overall event, was the fire department.
So when your ESUs, the special groups that went into
Right.
the World Trade Center, were they supposed to report to the incident commander from the fire department and say, sir, here I am reporting for duty, what do I do, tell me what to do?
They would be deployed on the initial mobilization. I think you heard earlier today they talked about a level 4 mobilization. When that mobilization occurred, different units come from the 5 boroughs, including emergency services. When they get downtown, their commanders downtown will say, okay, emergency service, truck 1, truck 2, whatever they are, you're going into the building. You 2 teams are going over here. Well, the guys that's going to the building, they will report to the fire commander, whoever's in that building, and say, we're here, what do you need? And that's the way they operate. And I saw a video this morning of where that occurred. They went into the building and reported to the fire commander. That's the way they're supposed to operate.
So let me move on then, because I only have a very limited time.
No, this is the last question.
Yes. I'm only reiterating my second question from before, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a New Yorker for nothing. So is it helpful then to go from a situation where there is at least facial clarity on which one of your departments would have been the lead commander for the incident in the World Trade Center to one in which there is a jump ball? Is that helpful to have people have to have a discussion when there's an aviation incident among the police department, the fire department, and the others as to who's in command?
Ms. Gorelick, I was a police commissioner from August of 2000 to December 31st of 01. In the time I was the police commissioner, I never had a problem with the protocols. So I've never worked under the new protocols, and I think, those determinations were made by Commissioner Kelly and Commissioner Scopetta in conjunction with the mayor, Mayor Bloomberg. I think they're the best ones to answer the question.
Anyone else want to answer that question? I guess not.
No.